Hey, it's Claire and James here. Before we get stuck into this week's episode, we just want to let you know that we're about to launch a first of its kind tool that's going to help you identify where you might be holding yourself back from living your fullest potential at midlife.
We're naming it the Midlife Reset Audit, and what's incredibly exciting is that it'll offer you your personalised strategies that give you the most impactful wins, so you can quickly take back control of your body, mind and life.
Now we're just putting the finishing touches to it, making it the best it can possibly be. So if you'd like to be the first to take the audit, pop your name on the waiting list. Just go to themidlifementors.com/audit.
Poor sleep troubles many of us, yet an often overlooked part of the puzzle is our sleep posture. In this episode, we talk to sleep posture expert James Leinhardt about the importance of nighttime postural care and the impact on our overall health.
James has spent 10 years plus helping the critically injured, the chronically ill and the infirm, and has learnt a key fact. Whether it comes to complex neurological patients, elite athletes, home office workers and everyone in the middle, the impact of sleep quality and specifically what we sleep on can't be underestimated.
We learnt some fascinating facts and we're sure you will too.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. How are you all? I'm not quite sure what we've been up to really and when this one's going to go out, because we've actually got an amazing guest for you today on this episode. So I'm not quite sure where this is going to go out, but what we've been up to over the last week or so since we last recorded a podcast. Just trying to think.
More of the same, Claire. We're wading through an English January, aren't we? So,
wading through.
Going to the gym, going for walks in the cold, a bit of cold water swimming.
That sounds very... James isn't in a very positive mood today. Wading through January.
January seems to go very... You have all that excitement of Christmas, New Year, then it's like, years go by. Yep, still January.
Yeah, I know. And also we were sick at the beginning of it. So we missed half of January. It has gone very, very fast.
It's gone fast. But I'm looking forward to February. So
yes, and we are kind of in the weeds of creating a new product right now. This will probably, it will have launched by the time that this podcast goes out, but we've got the 10-day midlife boost, which is really exciting. We're building that out now. It actually launches to the waiting list tomorrow. But we've just been deep in tech, which is never a good place for us. We are not good at that whole tech thing, are we? We get a bit grumpy with each other.
We do.
Anyway, without further ado, because it's not about us today.
No, we're going to be talking...
Another James.
Yeah, we are meeting another James. We're talking all things, well, not all things sleep, specifically things about sleep posture and how that can impact you. So if you are one in 4 insomniacs in the UK, or you just got trouble sleeping, this is going to be of real benefit to you. So let's introduce James Leinhardt, founder of Levitex and sleep posture expert.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks so much for being here.
Really nice to be on. And yes, I think, you know what, wading through January is probably the best. I mean, I don't think it gets that. That is exactly what we do, right? I think that is just, does the month have 40 days in it? I don't know. Something's weird with this month.
It seems longer, doesn't it, James?
I do feel...
I feel they've tricked us in some way with January.
I do feel like a lot of people have struggled with January this year. I don't think I'm making it up. I've seen a lot in some of the groups that I'm in and the mentorship groups and the coaching groups I'm in. People are just also feeling like they're wading through January. So anyway, just one more day to go.
I know. Well, James, thank you so much for joining us. You are a sleep posture expert. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how...
Sure.
I'm a sleep posture expert. And what do you do?
It is unique in as much as I think I'm probably the first person to be one. So I'm a sleep practitioner, but my main focus has always been, prior to that work, so some more generalist sleep work, was helping patients in complex neurological rehab wards, So people who, for example, have had a traumatic brain injury or suffer with cerebral palsy, MS, people who are having to be managed and moved by somebody else. They can't move themselves for a number of reasons, and they are susceptible to pressure injuries, to obviously very little sleep, and most importantly, the thing that kind of gets me out of bed is their body shape deformity, which in time, if you've ever seen a sort of a really awfully disabled person that presents where their hands are coming to their chest or their legs are fixed and crossed, this is all a relationship between the position that a person lies in for a period of time and the surface that they lie on to maintain and preserve that body shape. So whilst that sounds really niche, actually, the spectrum of our work is covered not just from complex neurology, but all the way through to, for example, elite sports professionals. Because if you have a spine and you sleep, then this relationship is really important. And I suppose what we've learned over the years and why our expertise is becoming more relevant, particularly in the sleep arena, is you mentioned yourself, I think it's 1 in 4 adults in the UK currently suffer with insomnia. 1 in 2 Brits gets less than 6 hours. So we see so much sleep science now. It's a really sexy topic. Everyone's talking, I need sleep. I get loads, I get not so much. My bed's great. Why? Because it cost me 10 grand. My bed's terrible. Why? Because I bought it, with my pal when I was at uni, whatever. But the point is that in sleep, as I mentioned to you before we started the call, there's only really 2 things you can apply tangibly that you can control. So if you are one of those 1 in 4, which is a terribly big number, you can address your sleep hygiene when you drink your coffee, when you argue with your partner, which I'm sure you two never do.
Never.
But never in the bedroom, right? Always outside when you're on your podcast. So
Yeah.
basic hygiene that, you really don't need me for. It's readily available information, regular sleep times, schedules, etc. But the other thing that no one's talking about and has a huge impact on your sleep is the position that you go to sleep in, or more importantly, the provocative postures you may lie in for a long period of time. So if you think of the example of watching television with your head turned all the way to the left for an hour, and I'm just looking at your eyes go up just then, and that sounds ludicrous, then imagine how many of the people that are listening to this sleep on their stomach for 8 hours a night. And how is that any different? So if you get to sleep on your stomach and you turn your head all the way left for 7 or 8 hours and you can't understand why you have neck pain or why you get pins and needles because of the restricted blood flow into your limbs, put those 2 together, because that is the reason. Or if your lower back hurts because you're lying on a soft bowl of porridge, that's probably the reason. So, there's really commonsensical approach to the only thing you can tangibly control in your sleep other than sleep hygiene. So, AKA, this is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said there, you called it a provocative posture, which is what I like to find Claire in the bedroom. But what do you mean by that?
It's so funny.
I knew you were going to say that. I know, I've been with you too long, James.
So I'll tell you, before I tell you what a provocative posture is, I can tell you that we do a lot of TikTok. For whatever multitude of reasons, TikTok is this weird platform that seems to really like our content, and we've had nearly 500 million views of our videos. So I said to my wife the other week, do me a favor, you've not been in one video, I need you for a video. It's a small one, it's not going to go far. And it was showing people how to lie with good posture as a couple. You didn't need to sleep in a separate bed. You could lie in a particular way and still, be happily married whilst not destroying your spine. Anyway, long story short, it hit the mail. The next day it was in the New York Times. And her nickname, which was in the blooper of the video, which was like, come on, Tallulah, do this. And she's called Talia. So the New York Times headline was something like CEO of Levitex and his wife Tallulah. I'm still in trouble now, just to tell you. So
it won't go anywhere. It won't go anywhere, darling. It will just be a tiny TikTok video.
Keep it with us. So anyway, a provocative posture. It was actually a term coined by a chap in Australia whose name I forget. Mark. It'll come to me. But he wrote a piece of work that has reached medical journals. It's been accepted in peer-reviewed medical journals. And he talked about the avoidance of provocative postures. And the provocative posture is where you rotate your hips. So, for example, do you two both lie on your side or your backs? Don't say stomach.
Bit of both.
Okay. When you lie on your sides, am I right in saying that you both bring the top leg over the bottom leg, so both knees are kind of touching the bed?
Yes.
And would you also tell your audience that I didn't watch you both sleeping last night, because that would be odd? Right. Okay, so this was not a calculated question.
The weird
The
thing is,
point
I
is,
think we kind of sleep quite similarly.
We
It's
have
a
similar
weird,
positions.
weird thing to say, but we're so in sync that we actually sleep in similar positions.
Yeah.
I think. Anyway, sorry, just a little
Well-
note for you all.
well, it just demonstrates the love, right? So you are
Yeah.
you're okay. So your
Is that what it
oneness
is
in
when she
sleep
shouts,
posture.
"Don't touch me" when we're in bed?
Don't touch me.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
wake
because-
me up.
Did you think you now had a working brain that was required in this relationship? What's taking you so long to figure out where you stand in space? Okay, so going back to the provocative posture, you both do it every night. If you think about a really good seated posture, which all three of us are not in, and you think of a good seated posture, you immediately bring your shoulders back. And actually, we have grandma telling us off at the dinner table, but really neither of you is going to hold this posture where you're lifting your shoulders up. Okay, but if you imagine that we all agree that that's considered a good posture, sitting back in your chair. If you look down, there's a big space between your knees and your ankles. So when you go to sleep, imagine sitting in your ergonomic chair and being plopped on your side on the bed. The two things that are going to change for you, one is that your head drops into the bed. So now your neck's holding onto a 4 to 6 kilo bowling ball if you don't support it and fill that space. And it's also going to drive that weight, that force will drive into your shoulders pressure. So people who lie on the side with neck and shoulder pain, sorry, it's because you've got a pillow that's the size of a pancake. Really simple and makes sense because you're both nodding because this is so obvious, right? Same is true of your legs. Now, when your top leg drops down, then your hip has to internally rotate for the legs to meet. Your bottom leg's not coming to meet your top leg. So one's dropping to the bottom. Now, as a woman, as one of you is, your hips are wider apart than your knees. Knees to ankles is straight. So your situation is even more pronounced than James's because you've got a bigger space between from hip to knee.
Mhm.
So if you just do something as simple as pop a pillow between your knees and ankles when you go to sleep tonight, that top leg won't roll over. You won't rotate hips. That won't then change the position of your spine. And that's why your lower back hurts in the morning or your neck or your shoulder, or it takes you a bit longer to get out of bed. And it had nothing to do with the fact that you were made to do the gardening 2 weeks last Monday.
So I do actually shove some of the duvet. This is when you get upset
Yeah, I do
with
that
me.
as well.
You do this too, don't
This
you?
is why we fight over the duvet nights. We're both shoving it between our knees on opposite sides of the bed.
There you
I
go.
do shove the duvet between my knees.
Yeah, I do. I make a little roll.
Well,
and
I've
shove
got
it.
bony knees as well, so I don't want them to hurt.
Right. So, but again, and this is the most common mistake, and we're so close, and we're nearly there. So that sounded really patronising, didn't it? What a wally. Okay, so if these are your hips, knees, and ankles, if you just support the knees, your legs are going to kind of look like that, where the second half of the leg bows out. If you support the knee and the ankle, any old tatty pillow from the supermarket will do it. If you look down now, both of you, to your floor, you will see a space between your knees and ankles.
Mhm.
Gravity will bring those knees and ankles together if you don't support the top leg. It's really simple, just common sense, and
Okay.
doesn't cost anything.
No.
You know, we talked before at the beginning. I'm going to use that line for the rest of my life, by the way. Wading through January.
It was great.
So I don't know when this is being aired, but I read a stat yesterday that said only 20% of people who have a January New Year's resolution keep to it by the end of January. What happens thereafter, who knows? So all those gym goers, all those nutrition bullet drinking people, all those yoga lovers, all those meditators, all those step walkers, all of those things, by virtue of time, because you sleep for 26 years of your life, you exercise on average for 1. So just by virtue of time and for 0 cost, more than you paid last night, you could improve the quality of your sleep tonight, and it will have more significant impact on your wellness than anything else that you've probably done if you are even in the remaining 20% as of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Love
But it's
that.
actually that's so amazing when you put stats against it. But it is quite funny because a gym is starting to empty out a little bit.
Yes, it
I think we go obviously 5 times a week, and I've noticed that people are starting to drop off already. So James, what health impacts can poor sleep posture have on people?
Well, this is the challenge. So the sleep systems, which is how I originally kind of came into this arena. So I developed a sleep device it's like cushions that stick to a bed that manages the posture of a patient that has these complex conditions, because no two people ever present in the same shape. They have different body shapes, as do you two, right? So you both go to sleep in the same position on the same bed, on the same pillow, but not the same shoe size or clothes size or anything else the same.
Well,
No.
James
But-
doesn't like to try and wear my clothes, but
Uh-huh.
Only at the weekends, so it doesn't count.
just on the weekends.
But the point is, am I right in saying that you both lie on the same pillow but aren't, and I can only see your heads, aren't the same shapes and sizes? So if you're both in agreement that you couldn't, unless it was for obviously a naughty reason, wear each other's clothes, why would you wear each other's pillows? It doesn't make any sense at all. But yet, if you can, one of you buys the pillows and you come home and the partner goes, "Oh wow, a new pillow," and you give it a squeeze and you're dead happy. If I brought you now the best pair of, I don't know, whatever high-end brand shoes, but they were in a size 2, you wouldn't be grateful when you got the box. You'd be really annoyed with me. There's no difference. We're not the same shape and size, nor should we be relying on the same shape and size of sleep surface. It doesn't make sense. So in terms of what can it do, sleep's posture became an importance in that arena where patients are in bed up to 24 hours a day. And what we're trying to do is preserve their body shape, because in an acute clinical setting, we're trying to avoid pressure injuries, body shape distortion, compression of internal organs, compression of lung capacity, because when a patient presents in these horrific positions, that's what they're going towards. Let's not even forget the pain that's caused to get you to that sort of shape and position. So we always get told, and the argument will always come from younger, normally musculoskeletal physios, that the body is dynamic and we were designed to be elastic and plastic, which is totally true. I couldn't agree more. 100 years ago, we walked 25,000 steps a day. We now walk 3,500 steps a day. 100 years ago, there wasn't such a thing as a computer position. There wasn't tech neck because we didn't stare at a phone for 8 hours a day. We also lived till 30 or 40 as cavemen. We now live till 80. So I agree that the body is dynamic. I agree that we are elastic and plastic. But by 50, we're all going to start getting arthritis. That's just a given. And, the wheels start to fall off. So going back to my original point, if you can only control the quality, not the quantity of your sleep, you need 8 hours, but your kid's waking up at 4, or you're doing a night shift, or you hate your partner, or your bills can't be paid. There's a million reasons why I don't sleep very well at the moment. I've got 4 boys, as I told you, 2 dogs. I run my own business, as do not my pillow will never help those things. And the VAT man, you can only hit him with the pillow. You can't do much else.
We were talking about VAT earlier on.
It's tax season.
It's tax season. What a lovely way to enter the year. Personal tax, corporation tax, and VAT.
Correct. Exactly. So, the promise of a perfect night's sleep is quite an arrogant, ludicrous statement. But the industry's got away with for 100 years. My approach is, I will never guarantee you a perfect night's sleep because you're never going to have one. But when you are asleep, if you wake up having had less neck pain, then your day gets better. So if you think about the relationship between pain, and the main reason for sleep disruption is pain, musculoskeletal pain and sleep deprivation are 2 of the main occupational health concerns globally in all employers' HR departments. So, and then of course you've got mental health, which is the 3rd crisis in the globally. Well, if you wake up having had a better quality of sleep in less pain, you'll be in a better mood. And if you're in a better mood, you'll find it easier to get to sleep because you're in less pain. And if you're in less pain, you'll have a better mood. So in the same way that an insomniac reads an article that says, don't get 8 hours and your life's going to end and you may as well not bother, versus, hey, I'm going to give you a modicum of control back because I can't deal with the anxiety, which is our main reason for not sleeping nowadays, stress and anxiety. I can't help that. That's what a ridiculous knock on you guys, right? Even with the value that you offer on this podcast, if someone's going through it, like they might, feel the empathy, they might feel that, a similar story that might give them some confidence. But fundamentally, we ain't helping their disaster, are we? Whereas here you've got something that doesn't promise you the world, but it has such an impact. And like I said, of course, I have a brand, I've made products and what have you, but that's not, we're selling sleep posture. You don't need to buy my product to sleep better than you did last night. Both of you tonight can sleep better just by that one piece of advice. No charge. I won't even charge for it.
Oh, bless you. I want to come back to something you mentioned at the start.
Yeah.
I read some articles as well where you said that sleeping on the front is really bad. And obviously you mentioned the neck position there. There are other reasons why sleeping on the front is bad. And I also saw you recommended 2 positions, the soldier and the dreamer. So could you explain that?
Yeah. Okay. So with the first question, when you sleep on your stomach, if you think about the logic of where your spine is, forgetting anything else, you're lying on something to support you, right? When you sleep on your stomach, in between the mattress and your spine is your belly, your internal organs when you sleep on your stomach, which means that gravity, which doesn't disappear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for our whole lives, is going to pull down through the night, as it does when you lie on your back. So those that snore, when you lie on your back, you're snoring because gravity is compressing your airways. When you lie on your stomach, gravity pulls against the natural curves of your spine, which is why so many people get lower back pain. You're also putting more pressure into your knees, if you think about it, because your body's being pushed that direction. You are turning your head all the way left or all the way right. If you then put a pillow on underneath your chin, you're hyperextending a twisted neck all the way left or all the way right. You're restricting blood flow if you bring your arms up, which is why people get pins in the. I know people who've they've not had a clinical diagnosis of the link, but always slept on their stomach and now have fibromyalgia and never listened to the tingling fingers. Now that's I say that not to sort of scaremonger. That was a real life experience of an Olympic cyclist that I met 4 years ago.
Wow.
I won't mention it, names, but so I think even more so, if you think about your audience, and not just your audience in their own lives, but those that they love, because we're now at an age where, unfortunately, we have to care for those that we love, and we're at the big boy stage of life where we're parenting our parents in some ways, aren't we? I'm sure your audience, and I say that my parents are here well, and if they hear this, they'll give me a slap. I mean it with love, and you know what I'm saying.
Same with my parents.
Yeah. So the point is that this is, if it doesn't feel relevant to us, it should feel relevant to those that we love, because they get even less sleep than us. And the point is, if you think about ever visiting a hospital or a care home to see a loved one, have you ever seen a patient on their stomachs ever? No, except for corona during intensive care. In intensive care during the second wave of corona, patients were being put on their stomachs because it helped the lungs ventilate. It was a clinical intervention. We actually made a product for a hospital to get patients on their stomach more comfortably because they couldn't tolerate, because it's such an unnatural position. But that's the only time. There's no other good reason. Unless there's a clinical reason, there's no reason, as far as I'm concerned.
James, do lots of people sleep on their stomach? Because I never have, and I know you don't.
15,
it's quite a common
15, yeah, 15, 20%, something like that. And what's interesting is that stomach sleepers, who generally also have the most pain but don't marry the two, are very, very possessive about their position. I can only go to sleep on my stomach. Is we get it all the time. In fact, our most controversial videos or our most popular videos on TikTok are always the ones where we're screaming out about stomach sleepers. I think we did one that got 75 million views. That's how controversial it is.
Wow.
It's potty. But the point is, when you can't sleep and you're not getting the hours and you're in pain and all the things that come with insomnia or whatever reason is causing somebody not to sleep, whatever you do have is so precious and you will not lose it for anyone. But what people don't realize is you're making it worse for yourself. You're making your sleep less quality. You're making the pain more intense. And the answer I always give when people say I can't is every single pregnant woman that ever went into a doctor's to find out they were pregnant, and the doctor said, oh, by the way, you now need to lie on your left side for 9 months, all managed. So what we know of position, or indeed things like having a white noise, my son has a fan in his room, has to be on, even now in this blooming weather. He has to have that noise, is the thing that gets him to sleep. It's called a sleep association. So people who go to sleep on their stomachs, are comfy. They are in their waking, what we call nom-nom moments, just before you're falling asleep. But if you think about the logic, so it feels comfy, that's why you're falling asleep. If you've ever fallen asleep on a train or watching TV and your head's dropped to the left or the right, and you wake up after 5 minutes, there is a disconnect between sleep and pain. So when you're in pain during the day, like you have been this whole time, every time you become a bit uncomfortable, as have I, you move. So at one point, your hand was holding, just one hand was holding your face, then you had two, you've moved back, So you adjust. When you're asleep, you don't wake up to adjust. So the reason why you have excruciating neck pain after only 10 minutes is because the pain chaps have been told to get lost, because the sleep chaps are in the game and they just want to sleep. Just leave me alone. need to get my sleep. So we don't often realize that we're going to sleep in a comfortable position. And those that sleep on the stomach who are comfortable always lie on something soft and don't realize that it's to accommodate their god-awful spine health. If you're lying on your stomach, you best sleep on something soft because it'll forgive what you're doing to your spine more. But it's also obvious, the reaction that you're giving me now, and I say this genuinely without arrogance, is the same reaction I get from every single person I meet, including all the clinicians, all the talks and workshops we do at the NHS with physios and OTs and doctors. And they go, why has no one ever told us about this? So if I bring it back to your very first question, what is a sleep expert? I now have to teach this, or not have to, I love to teach this. I'm an honorary lecturer at UCLan, because there is not a single module on sleep posture in occupational therapy, physiotherapy,
Really?
nursing, not one. So there's a bit on sleep, but your number one occupation is sleep. Yet occupational therapists are not taught what seems to me to be such a glaringly obvious, commonsensical approach to sleep. I don't think anyone can really argue with what I've said so far.
No.
And I've not used one clinical word. I've not said, fragilitis cranium is going to get you. I've just said, if you lie on your stomach, your neck might hurt a bit in the morning. Like, there's really nothing particularly challenging here.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, the challenge maybe is that it's so obvious. People want more data, more stats. Just,
The data is scarce these days, aren't
So
they?
tell us the soldier and the dreamer.
So they come actually from our medical device. So the patients that we serve in hospital, these are patients that are highly vulnerable, have no capacity, susceptible to pressure injuries, can be anything from a young child with cerebral palsy all the way through to an elderly person who's been in an old care home for 10 years. And those people need to be positioned every 2 to 4 hours for the avoidance of pressure injuries on their side and on their backs. So when we use the sleep system on the backs, other than, you guys are able-bodied, thank goodness, what we're looking for is that the shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles are all aligned. And very often people who have soft beds, for example, will bring one leg out. We call it the yogi, or they'll bring their arms, flare their arms up.
I do the
yogi.
Because
So if you think about trying to support yourself in water and you want to float, you distribute your body weight. It's the same kind of thing. So in healthcare, we position a patient and we bring a pillow or cushions underneath their knees to slightly rotate and tilt the pelvis. If you think about standing against the wall, particularly the bigger your bottom, the more pronounced this will be. And that's no judgment of anyone's bottoms. It's just a physical fact. There's a distance. I couldn't agree with you more. So there's an arch between, your sacrum and that middle arch. The bottom of your back, and there's like an arch. So the bottom in the way means there's a big space between that arch and the bed. So if that space exists, gravity will pull down into whatever crevice it can find. If you slightly tilt the pelvis, you're essentially putting more of your spine on the bed, more backs touching the bed. You're softening the muscles around the legs. And it's a position that's going to make it less likely that you're yogi or you flail your arms up. So the soldier comes from lying on your back in the environment that we're talking about in the acute clinical setting. And the dream is the same. So semi-fetal side lying, where the spine is neutral. It's just like a seated posture on your side. And that's the exact same position we support our patients in, except for those guys, they have cushions behind their backs to keep them from falling onto the back. And they have what we call a bridge that goes between their knee and a bridge that goes between their ankles to keep maintaining that separation and that support for the top leg. It's the exact same thing we've been doing for 15 years in an acute clinical setting. So if we can do it for people who, in some cases, we've been able to reverse body shape deformity. So patients that present like this can now have an extension of a leg that was never thought possible. And it's really easy. It's just no one cares. Which is why, from a passion piece, we scream at people like yourselves, because if you sleep better tomorrow just by virtue of one silly little hack that I showed you in 1 second, then you'll definitely respect what I've said to you more. When you start this call with, we're introducing a sleep posture expert, half of your audience will be like, what even is that? But I'd like to think by the end, they will all be actively assessing what they're lying on. Does it sink in the middle? Does the pillow, although it smells nice because you've had it for 40 years, actually do the job of supporting your head? It's a lying surface. It's designed to help you sleep optimally. It's not just about it feels comfy or I can't lie on a soft bed. I can't. No. What does your body need to have the best quality of sleep, given that you're not getting the hours that you need? And I can't help you with that side. That's it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, my brother has, when you said MS right at the beginning of the call, my brother has MS, and it's pretty bad actually. He's in a wheelchair, and so I was actually just thinking, like, my heart just went out for him. Actually, I thought, what? Never even asked him about his sleep, which is awful of me. I mean, I don't know how much sleep he gets, how he manages to sleep.
Well, you'll
difficult.
forgive me because I'm obsessive, and we're definitely having a proper conversation outside of this. And you raised it, and I didn't know it. So, but this is why we get out of bed. I have no interest in how many pillows we sell. Our mission is around making pathway care change, because actually, your brother will have access to potentially or hopefully physiotherapy, maybe, or he'll have access to a particular kind of wheelchair. But then he just goes to bed, and the only consideration in that huge window of time is he going to get a pressure sore or not?
Yes.
And actually, somebody with progressive MS who is losing their ability to know where they are in space needs more than a moving lying surface to sleep on. In fact, I can only imagine that he doesn't sleep very well. We'll see if we can help. And if the logic that I've described to you and your audience, and that's the point, right? We exist for people like your brother, and I don't want to make you emotional. But the point is that your brother is fully aware of his environment, and there is a treatment window of opportunity since he was diagnosed that no one's ever touched. And to me, that's unforgivable if we now know. And that's why we do what we do. There's a very limited body of evidence, but if the logic is that all daytime interventions for a person with progressive MS are physio, OT coming, care time 4 times a day, whatever he eats during the day, blah, 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 blah. And then at night, because he could be spending longer in bed than he does in anywhere else. If you guys learn how to improve your postures, then when you go to visit him, it will pee you off when he's lying in a bad position. Or you might tell the care staff, who are also not sleeping, by the way, who also have back pain, by the way, if they learn how to sleep, then he will no longer become the chap that they come to between 9 and 9:20 till they get to the next piece of fruit. And actually, it humanizes the fact that, well, actually, if my back's hurting less because I slept less like a wally, then I'm duty bound to at least share it with the person I'm caring for and love, or caring for because it's my job. So this is so circadian. If everybody listens to this and recognizes how to improve their own sleep, and you didn't share at the beginning, and I'm really grateful that you did now, because that wasn't the purpose of this call, although it is my purpose. If we educate the world about the significance of sleep posture, at some point in our lives, we will be caring for those that we love, as you are right now, or those that we love, unfortunately, will be caring for us. And we can make it easier for no cost. There's no, my biggest challenge is I have a business and I've made some phenomenal products, which takes away my integrity. I can't say to you, I can help and it doesn't benefit me. If sleep posture is given as much respect as it should be, one day I'll be sipping pina coladas on a beach. There's no getting away from that. It's really difficult because so then why am I doing it? I would benefit from doing it, but equally I've seen what you've seen. I remember when Corona finished, one of the first patients I saw was a chap with MS who hadn't been seen in 2.5 years. He was 6'5", and he was on a standard single hospital bed, so he had to sleep like bow leg, like a frog, to fit on his bed. Hadn't been seen by a single person for 2.5 years. Now, you can then get really angry with the local authority or the NHS or even the clinicians, but then you go, okay, if you are a physiotherapist or an OT and you've got a caseload that is so overwhelming, you know that you need to see a person for 6 hours a week intensively for 20 weeks, but you've been told you can see them in a year and a half for an hour. At some point, you become a little bit desensitized by the awful things that you see and limited help you can give. And it's no one's fault. Like, we were already overwhelmed. We've had Corona. The issue isn't whether we've been overwhelmed or not. It's owning it and saying, look, we are overwhelmed. Depending on your postcode lottery is dependent on the care you get. I'm sure you've experienced varying types of care in the time that your brother's been poorly. If he is indeed poorly now, that will get worse over time because there's simply no money. So again, making this even more relevant. What do we do at home before we even get to hospital to limit how often we have to go to hospital. It's all, everything that we've discussed has one singular message. If you're a human with a spine and you sleep, there's a way of doing it slightly better that will not cure your MS, because who the hell would have the ignorance to say something as stupid as that? But it might make your night a little bit more comfortable, and then you might be easier to get out of bed in the morning, which might make it care easier, which might make your day easier. Like, no one loses really. And all I'm saying is, think about how thick your pillow is, and think about not twisting your neck for 8 hours a night, because it probably won't be good for you, even if I can't prove it, just because it's so obvious.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, it all makes, it's interesting, isn't it? When you have conversations like this, of course, it makes absolute sense. Of course it does. And
the big challenge in healthcare, sorry to interrupt you, is that we are only accountable in healthcare to pressure injuries because they're so costly, and they're so, like a pressure sore. I've seen one that went to the bone. That means a degradation of skin all the way to the bone. Like, that doesn't take a day. That's like quite an intense amount of horrificness. So, but the point is that pressure is not the problem. The problem is movement. If you don't move for too long, and particularly if you're incontinent, then you're going to get a pressure sore. So if you move more, you won't. Yeah. It's a different approach, but it also considers more than just pressure. So your lying surface, it's interesting that that's come up. I'm sorry if that came up.
No. I mean, I think it's really important that we always share, you're very, very passionate about it, and it's really coming from the heart because of what you've seen. I think it's always really important to bring our own personal stories into this podcast as much as we can. I've mentioned about my brother before.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, truly. No, but I think it's, we're all dealing with our own stuff in our other immediate families or ourselves. I think, if that conversation around MS helps someone think about sleep a bit differently and the way that they're positioning themselves, I mean, it absolutely has made sense to me, and I will be much more conscious of it. So definitely. James, thank you so much for sharing your passion on this podcast. Like, it really is fascinating. As you say, it's a simple thing, but it's also so important. It now makes such sense to me that I'm like, actually, we spend most of our time sleeping. Why are we not bothering to think about our posture when we're sleeping? It's just crazy that we don't. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. Like, how can people find out more about what you do? How can they get in touch with you, James?
Well, we have obviously we have our website, which is levitex.co.uk. My main channel is TikTok, which is at Levitex. And what I've tried to do, again, challenging myself with the integrity piece, is every day I put on a new video that's just free content showing you how to improve a specific thing in your sleep, maybe a pregnant lady or getting too hot or neck pain, whatever it might be. And then 3 nights a week I do a live. So if you get in touch, any Levitex, you will find us and we will find you for sure.
That's awesome. Amazing.
We'll put those links in the show notes as well.
I was just about to say that. And James, thank you again. It's been a real eye-opener to talk to you, and a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors. Yeah. What? Yeah. 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 Thanks for listening. And just before you go, we wanted to remind you that the waitlist for the Midlife Reset Audit is now open.
You can be the first to take this revolutionary new tool to helping you live your healthiest, happiest midlife by signing up at themidlifementors.com/audit.